webinars or one-on-ones or training material.
We should test with her without any payment.
About like idea validation. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my channel. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about starting a startup, what it takes to start a startup, and some of the essential steps that you need to take in order to be able to found a company that is hopefully going to be successful. My name is Layla Khanamad and I am an entrepreneur living and working in Chicago. I have personally co-founded and am co-operating 2 startups. One of them is called Lapel. Lapel is an online English language learning platform that operates on all possible global time zones, and I have also co-founded iChefNow.com. It's a platform where restaurants deliver meal kits, meaning ingredients and recipes for you to recreate restaurant dishes at home. I will also share with you some of the personal experiences, milestones, achievements, and failures that I have had along my journey. So if you're ready, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Wow, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I have specifically waited to film this video to be able to put on this jacket, but we're not gonna brag about my startups in today's video. I'm gonna start with the first essential step in creating a startup company, and that is obviously having an idea. We all know that everybody has ideas. While some of these ideas can be great, some of the others are not so good. However, I think the biggest misconception that a lot of the entrepreneurs have, a lot of us founders have, is that our idea has to be brilliant. In fact, when founding a startup company, when starting a business, your idea does not have to be brilliant. It just has to be viable. How do you really know if your idea is viable? So there are a few of the default steps that you need to go through to make sure that your idea is viable. And the first step in identifying whether or not your idea is viable is analyzing the market. And the best way of analyzing the growing market, the market that you want to fit into, is to create a business plan. And a business plan is basically a written description of the future of your business. We are gonna film a whole separate video on how to make a business plan. Research shows that 36% of the founders that do have a business plan in place are more likely to obtain a loan. And actually, 36% of the founders that do have a business plan in place are very likely to obtain investment capital. And 64% of the founders that do have a business plan in place are much more likely to actually grow their business. It is true that you can still obtain a loan and land investment capital and grow your business without a business plan. And this whole entire thing may sound too theoretical to you. However, when you put yourself in front of accelerators and knowledgeable investors, they're gonna come after these things, so you better be prepared. So without getting into further detail about what exactly a business plan is and how to make a business plan in a detailed format, there are thousands of templates out there on the internet. All I'm gonna say is that a business plan is basically a description of what you wanna do and how you want to do it with your service, your platform, your product, maybe a traditional business model that you have in mind. Typically, business plans outline 3 to 5 years of your business strategy. And starting off with a business plan will help you complete some of the challenges that follow as the next essential steps in starting a company. Going back to the number 1 step in identifying whether or not your idea is viable is analyzing the market, analyzing the growing market, and doing that through creating a business plan. The second step in identifying whether or not your idea is viable is researching how to make it better. Again, I wanted to reiterate that you do not need a brand new idea to be able to start a successful company. All you need to do is to research, understand, and analyze how others are solving certain problems and come up with ways of solving those problems in a better format. So you can start completing this step by doing some self-evaluation. For example, asking yourself, what problem do you aim to solve? How do you aim to solve it? Who has this problem? And do you have a valid answer to these questions? So not all customers are looking for the same solution. So even if there are solutions out there in the market, every customer is going to choose the type of a solution that best fits their needs. For example, when we created Lapel, we obviously knew that there were hundreds of platforms out there that teach English already. There are hundreds of thousands of people that teach English online already. We came up with an idea that better solves people's problems, and that is improving their speaking skills, making sure that they're clear and confident when they speak English. So we built Lapel around these values. We also built Lapel around the values of community, which is why we have a maximum of 4 students per class with 1 moderator, and each and every lesson is basically built on topics that you encounter on a day-to-day basis. For example, on Mondays, you could be studying grammar, for example, present simple, and link that to restaurants. On Wednesday, you could be studying past simple and link that to college experiences. And on a Friday, you could be studying articles and link that to traveling. Basically, sometimes starting a successful company, starting a successful startup comes down to finding a new solution for an old problem. In order to identify whether or not your idea is valuable, you have to analyze the growing market by creating a business plan, find out about the pain points that you want to solve, and think of disruptive, new and modern ways of solving existing problems. The answer to why you really need to validate your idea is, we need to validate the idea for 2 very important reasons. And the first is to understand whether or not we're creating the right product for the right market at the right time. And validating the idea also helps us analyze our chances, like predict our chances of selling, and increases our chances of getting to know the buyers in the process. The next steps in idea validation are obviously getting customer feedback. You can start by doing surveys, conducting interviews, sending emails, and basically putting your idea out there to ask people for what they think of your idea. A better way of doing this obviously is creating a landing page, having an advertisement, taking this idea validation process outside of the friends and family circle and putting it out there for a bigger community. And again, you are doing this to collect the data, to analyze and understand the market, to understand how it's doing, to understand how people would potentially be responding to the product that you will eventually create. And the next step of idea validation, and obviously I think this is one of the last steps of idea validation, are conducting a proof of concept, creating your first prototype, and finally creating the most viable product, the MVP. Now, it is not recommended that you create the most viable product before you do your proof of concept and before you create your first prototype. Again, this entire thing might sound too theoretical, and sometimes founders go, hey, I'm so busy creating my MVP, I don't really have time to go through all these steps. When you create your business plan, especially if you're starting a tech company, and when you put it in front of investors, when you take it to accelerators, these are the things that they are going to ask you about. I would say that this is a very good start. So before we get into some of the other important details on how to secure funding, I want to talk about building a team. So when starting a startup, obviously you should consider getting 2 teams. The first team is your founder team, and the second team is your operational team. Now, the problem with the second team is that it requires funds, right? You can't just go ahead and hire people without money. However, the founders team is the first team that can really take a startup and make it successful. And in terms of my founder teams, so there is 4 of us at iChefNow.com. So 4 co-founders on that project, and there is 6 of us at Dilbil.com. So 6 co-founders at that project. When building a company from scratch, obviously, it is recommended that there are at least 2 people on the team, especially when it comes to tech startups, because it's always a good idea to have a business person if you are on the tech side, or if you're on the business side, it's always a good idea to have a co-founder that is a technical co-founder. So you would basically be having a team of that consists of a CEO and a CTO. However, I believe in having a bigger team. I know that some people will say that the bigger the team, the more the chaos. I think that the most important thing when it comes to building a team, obviously, is having great communication skills, great conflict resolution skills, and obviously trust. Teamwork can make the dream work, or teamwork can kill the dream, literally. So you have to be very, very careful about that. The best thing about having a bigger founders team, for example, when there is 3 or 4 of you, is that it's gonna save you a lot of money in the long run, especially during the first 2 years when you're working on getting your startup up and running. For example, your CTO can be responsible for all the tech side of the company, while you, with your entrepreneurial vision and passion and with your soft skills, can put yourself out there and actually work on some of the other important parts of the business, such as marketing, business development, customer acquisition, and all that. I think that when building a team, education and background are obviously important, but they should not be the decisive points. I think that the decisive points when founding a team should be communication, respect, mutual trust, diversity, and most importantly, adaptiveness. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and aspiring entrepreneurs, the last thing that we're gonna talk about in this video is sources of fundraising. And now this one, I do have quite a bit of experience with, because I did look for funding when I was starting my first traditional business, which was my restaurant. And with iChefNow.com and Dilbil.com, we as a team applied for accelerators throughout the United States and Canada and Europe, and we actually made it all the way to the last round at Techstars Chicago, which we're very, very, very proud of. And we ended up getting rejected, and we did not get into the July's batch. However, this has taught us so much, and I can share more about this in one of my next videos, actually, the entire process of applying for accelerators, getting admitted, hopefully one day, or getting rejected. Getting rejected is something that we do have experience with. Some of the sources of finding funds for your startup, obviously, to be able to grow it, to be able to build websites, applications, to be able to test it, to be able to hire an operational team, to be able to invest into marketing and customer acquisition, is either through friends and family. You could raise a little bit of money through friends and family. This is something that we did with iChefNow.com as well as Dilbil.com. You could go through crowdfunding. This one I do not have a lot of experience with, but I will try and find people that do. Angel investor is another way of raising funds for the startup, and this I think is one of the hardest ways of raising funds for startup, because you could go through hundreds of angel investors, get hundreds of rejections because it's an independent angel investor. And I think that I personally, as a founder, think that the best way of raising funds for your startup is doing it through an accelerator, because there comes a time in the trajectory of your startup where it's not only about earning, it's also about learning. And accelerators have that experience. They have that expertise. They have the right network. Accelerators are basically like a college for your startup. Applying to an accelerator and trying to get funds from the accelerator actually stretches beyond getting funds. The value that you get out of accelerators, the expertise, the network is extremely valuable, and it translates, I personally think, into millions of dollars. So Techstars is one accelerator that we applied for. ERA in New York is another accelerator that we applied for. Y Combinator is a little difficult to get into, but who knows? Both of the startups that I co-operate are operational. They're both doing well. So who knows? With the traction that we get, we might be able to get their attention. And obviously venture capitalists, and these are the big shots. Once they invest, and they invest big chunks of money, your startup is bound to get a lot of attention once you get investment from a venture capitalist. I wanted to show you a little bit of how accelerators work, and I personally really like Techstars Accelerator. You could go on to their website literally and check for accelerators that are currently open. You just click on finding accelerator, and then down here you can pick whether or not you want to attend an in-person program, a virtual program, a hybrid program. You could click applications that are opening soon and now accepting applications, and then they will suggest a set of accelerators down here that are the best match for your startup. I think that I am going to conclude this video by also asking you a question on whether or not you think you have what it takes to become an entrepreneur. And as a lot of you know, entrepreneurship requires a lot of dedication, long hours, sleepless nights, and possibly a lot of failure before you really land a result. According to Founder Institute, some of the attributes of successful entrepreneurs are extroversion, openness, and fluid intelligence. So basically, extroversion is the ability to absorb new ideas and get hold of what other people think and how they think. Research actually shows that entrepreneurs are 40% more extroverted than non-founders. And in terms of openness, as an entrepreneur, you have to be open to ideas flowing from all different directions, and you have to have the ability to take advantage of both sides of your brain. And in terms of intelligence, research also shows that entrepreneurs are 10% more intelligent than non-founders. This is not me, this is research. So fluid intelligence is basically a trait that helps you solve problems and actually complete challenges. And to be able to gain this trait, you just have to be creative and put yourself out there. And instead of running away from problems, you need to be open to coming up with ideas to resolve them. Yeah. This is it for today's video. I hope that you enjoyed watching it. I hope that you've learned something, and I really do hope to see you guys in my next one.